Hi everyone, I'm Ian Davis, founder of Venture with Impact, and then today I'm chatting with Kate and Greg Heid, who are currently with us in Medellin. They're also alumni of our 1-month program in Lisbon this past November. How are you guys? Hey Kate and Greg.
Hi, and we're great.
Good to see you. And then they're also with their son. Is Wyatt 11 months old now?
Yes, he'll have his first birthday in Medellin, so it's coming up next week.
Oh, yeah, so they're with their 11-month-old son, and he was, what, 7 months when he was in Lisbon with us?
Correct.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk to you guys about your experience in Lisbon and Medellin, as well as what it's like to travel as a family with an infant.
Cool.
So can you guys tell us why you were initially interested in Venture with Impact and why you decided to join our program?
Do you want to? I'm sorry,
Sorry, Wyatt took the mouse.
The mouse.
Sure.
Don't leave the meeting, it says. Okay.
Yeah. So we're both teachers in Baltimore, Maryland, and we were awarded an educational sabbatical for this school year. We have been working in Baltimore for 11 years, and we're looking for new ways to professionally develop ourselves. So we found Venture with Impact because it would give us the opportunity to travel, to experience new cultures, but also to be able to work with volunteer organizations, to be able to, hi Wyatt, to be able to help out those organizations and also to work on some of our professional skills and learn from our partners.
Great. Yeah, and what about I know that Kate, you had a specific interest in environmental education. Can you tell us a little bit, well, both of you guys, can you tell us a little bit about your projects? Because Greg, too, you were focusing or wanted to focus more on community development. So can you tell us about your projects and
Yeah, so the focus of my sabbatical is on sustainable education and how that's happening in different places around the world. I can learn a lot in Baltimore, but it's really important that it's a global movement and to see how different cultures and different cities are making changes to be more and more sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the community focus for me, I kind of felt like teaching for 11 years, I've gotten great at teaching math content, but I really wanted to focus on how to engage my students, how to engage their families, how to engage the community in the school, and looking through the partnerships that Venture with Impact was offering, I felt like some of those programs could really let me take a step back from just Baltimore and just what's offered there and think about like what else can we be doing, be able to bring that kind of experience back, new ideas, a fresh look back to Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. And right now you're working with ACJ in Medellin, which is the YMCA of Medellin. Can you guys talk a little bit about what you're working on with them, and then also a bit more about what you did or what you completed with Renovara Moraria in Lisbon?
Yeah, so right now we are working with ACJ here in Medellin, and we're working with their English language teaching group. They have a group of volunteers who come in all throughout the week and are teaching kids after school, teaching kids on the weekends, and they're even teaching adults conversational English. And our biggest focus right now so far has been to help them inside their classrooms, which has been really neat to kind of see the teaching styles and like how the kids interact with the volunteers in another country. But we're hoping that our next look on what we can do to kind of give our teaching expertise is to look at the curriculum that they already have, and they do have a great curriculum, and just kind of inject some new ideas, some learning activities that we know work well, and see if those are things that work in another culture. That was one thing that was brought up immediately, was like people have done these things in the past, volunteers have come in and said, here are some plans for you, but without them being able to vet and say, yes, this is going to work for our kids, then it's kind of hard to say all of these things that we're going to give them are going to be is going to be worthwhile.
Sure.
So we're hoping to be able to write some lessons and actually see the volunteers use them and assist them in teaching them, and then while we're here, and then continue to write some lessons so that our impact will last longer than just our time while we're in Medellin.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
And then in Lisbon, so we worked with a group that was, I guess, again, it was a community organization, and they were, I guess, putting together the start of a project that had been going on for a while. It was a composting project where they're trying to engage people, both locals and so both residents and tourists, in the efforts to have a cleaner, greener living space in Lisbon, and specifically their area, Moraria. And I think our biggest goal and like task there was to kind of bring some ideas of what this looks like in our city to them, to see what could they be doing moving forward to offer those same type of services to in their storefront that's going to be opening. Actually, it did open by the time we had gone. They wanted to offer some education around the project and ways to kind of get the people involved. And that was, again, some of our teaching experience was able to help there with some different ideas and some different ways to get people involved there.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So now that we're talking about both Medellin and Lisbon, what are some of the things that you enjoy about both of the cities? What have been some of your favorite experiences?
Well, both cities, I think, are very neighborhoody, which is very neat. You go into one part of the city and you kind of explore how do residents there shop, how do they eat, what do they like to do, what are their parks like, how can we spend some time enjoying the environments. We thought Lisbon was a really cool European city because it's much smaller than some of the big cities, so it was kind of it still felt very European and unique. There certainly were some chains, but a lot of it was local development, and we really felt like we were living in Europe. It was also a very manageable sized city. We loved the public transportation there. It was really fun, especially for Wyatt, riding trams to and from our partner organization. So yeah, we love Lisbon. It's a beautiful city, lots of historical landmarks, and we loved all the tiles. It's really something that we'll remember when we think about Lisbon.
Yeah, it was neat. I think when I think of Europe, I think of how good their train system, their transportation system is. So it was neat for us to be able to take those trains to the nearby cities to do some, just to get out of the city for a weekend or for a day, to explore Sintra and Porto, just as a way to experience Portuguese culture without necessarily being right downtown in the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. When I first came to Medellin, I was surprised at how wonderful the local public transportation was. It really, in some ways, reminds me of Europe, just how accessible everything is. Although Lisbon and Europe in general, it's really nice. It's very easy to get outside of the city quickly and get to other sites.
The metro system here in Medellin is really well developed, and I asked maybe an 11-year-old what their favorite part of Medellin was, and they said the metro system, and I just thought that was a really cool response. I thought, maybe they would say the soccer culture or my school, or I just thought that was cool that already at that age they're really proud. They know that their metro system is really unique. So yeah, we've been using the metro to get around here also.
Yeah, we're in the second week here, and one of our to-dos is to make sure we get onto the metro cables as well, the cable cars, and I feel like that's another neat Lisbon has the trams. I feel like people, when think about traveling around Lisbon, it's the tram cars. And I feel like, and I don't know this yet, but I get the feeling that Medellin is like, people come and they see the really great metro, but then the cable cars that are everywhere, I feel like are just so unique that I feel like that'll be a lasting impact, a lasting memory that we'll have after we use some of those to kind of travel around the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
The Uber rides are really inexpensive here too, and convenient. You can go, we went cross town today in a 25-minute car ride, and it was, I think it was less than $5 of an Uber ride. So we were in times where we want a quicker transport. That was very convenient, very reasonable price.
Yeah. It's always fun. I feel like Uber drivers in Medellin are so friendly. It's like, always fun to practice your Spanish with them too. I found they'll talk about anything.
We have only a little Spanish, but we found that too. And I like being in Uber is definitely a time that I get to practice my Spanish. So that's fun.
Mm-hmm. Good. So can you guys tell us about your experience traveling as a family and what you've learned and also what you've enjoyed?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is how other people react to Wyatt. Has been really fun. In Lisbon, on all the trams, or even just walking around the city, I feel like we got a lot of hellos or a lot of friendly smiles just because we had Wyatt with us. And here, I think it's even to a greater extent. People want to hold him. People want to kind of pinch his cheeks. So I feel like we wouldn't have got to know nearly as many people without traveling with Wyatt. So that's like the first thing I think I'll think of for a while is how much everybody loves having a little baby around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, although Wyatt's not talking yet or walking yet, I think that it'll be really fun when he's older to show him pictures of where he's been and to hopefully get to visit these places again and show him you got to spend so much time here when you were little, and the people really loved you here. Talking about what we learned, Greg said everybody wants to touch and hold Wyatt, so I think that's something that we've learned as a family is just to kind of leave our American expectations for how to interact with strangers, and we've just seen how loving people are and how much they love interacting with him. So that's been really a fun lesson to just see how trustworthy and kind everyone is.
Yeah, that's probably a similarity between Portugal and Colombia is everybody loves like touching babies and almost acting like it's their own child.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Lots of hugs and cheek pulls or
He's I feel like, well, he had in Lisbon a pacifier that had the mustache drawn on it. So we were hearing all over Lisbon, we heard people shouting mustache, but it was in, it was Bigoj. We were hearing people shout that from far over. And here, it doesn't have that same pacifier anymore, but people are shouting at us, beautiful, he's beautiful. So it's hermoso from across the street, people are saying, and it's really neat to see how much attention he can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't seem to mind, so it's great.
Very cute.
Both locations seem to be very manageable with the amount of things we had to bring. Like this is Wyatt's our first and only child, so this is the first time we're traveling international, and I feel like both places it was easy to get out of the airport and into a taxi or a ride to the hotel or to the place that we're staying. And so even if we had to bring a couple extra bags that we weren't used to bringing, it was easy just to kind of put them in a car and then have them at the apartment and not really have to worry about it again. Walking around, it's been easy to have him in our little carrier, or even sometimes we were able to bring the stroller here to Medellin. We've used it a lot. We're hoping that he can nap in the stroller. He's bigger now, so it's a little bit harder to have him nap here because I feel like he wants to move around. He wants to do more. He's a little bit more. He puts off a little bit more heat. So that's been a little bit different having the stroller here.
Yeah. Although not as many hills as Lisbon, which is nice.
Not nearly as many hills. It's at least where we are right now in the Morales Estadio neighborhood. It's very flat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. How do you guys think that you benefited from, well, you're still in the Medellin program, but just from your experience thus far in Lisbon and now so far in Colombia, how do you think you've benefited from your experience professionally and personally?
I think professionally, I've learned content knowledge from working with partner organizations and learning about their projects and even helping them do research that I'll be able to apply to middle school science classrooms when I get back. Here in Medellin, I've been able to practice my Spanish, which is important both personally and professionally, working with students in Baltimore. So I'm excited to be able to get to continue to use that as I get back. I think also this time just to be somewhere different and to reflect on life has been important professionally and personally, to think about just changes that we're going to make, maybe things that we have in America that we don't necessarily need to have, and think about like what's most important is to us is our family. Getting to spend time with the family, I think, has just been something invaluable to us personally.
Mm-hmm.
A big goal of mine was to get some experience with community organizers in some way beyond what I'm capable of doing as a full-time teacher on a normal basis. And that has really been eye-opening for me to see the time commitment, the people skills, the relationships that people need to build in order to be successful with what they do. And I feel like I wouldn't have gotten a chance to be able to dive as deep into that if it weren't for this entire month with somebody else who, I mean, every place that we've been, we've met seemingly with like a knockout all-star in their field, to be able to kind of bring some best practices back to Baltimore, kind of just to think through them with the lens, like, how are you able to do this? And then the whole time having the time to say, I wonder how I can do that in my own time back on my everyday job back in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great.
When you're traveling,
Go ahead, Kate.
when you're traveling, you think a lot about cultural sensitivity, and just like, am I being sensitive to what people around here typically do? And I think that's something else that's important when we go back, just to think about, like, there's many different kinds of people where we come from, and how as a teacher or how as a neighbor can I be more sensitive to the needs of people around me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to, because you guys are doing this whole year abroad, next year when you go back to Baltimore and you're working again in your classrooms, just to see, I think it'll be interesting to hear even more so how, you know, what has come from spending the time in Medellin and Lisbon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. And you guys are master multitaskers.
He
very
makes sure we are.
It's a joke.
Thanks for, oh, he's giving a big smile to everybody. Yeah, thanks again, and have a great rest of your month in Medellin. We'll talk soon.
We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, great to talk to you, Ann.
Talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.